And if this doesn't work out, it doesn't work. We just won't use it.
Please don't use it.
Yeah.
All right. Disclaimer right now, it's not going to be good. I have no thoughts.
You say that now, but once we get you going, you get going.
Who knows?
It's like when Chantel says, I probably shouldn't talk about this. Pause. Let me talk about it.
Yeah. It's a good tell.
I've also declared war on potholes. So here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out. And he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a WCNY podcast about power and politics in New York. And on today's show, we're covering the head-scratcher of the year so far, which is how Assembly Health Committee Chair Amy Paulin was able to get a floor vote on her medical aid in dying legislation, which would allow mentally competent, terminally ill New Yorkers to end their lives with the support of a doctor. The bill has no guarantee of a vote in the Senate and divided some of the most powerful constituencies in the Assembly's majority, so we're very lucky to have Assemblymember Paulin in the studio to hopefully reveal some of the secrets behind her successful legislative campaign. Thank you so much for joining us, Assemblymember, and congrats on the movement in the Assembly.
Thank you very much.
So for a little context here, we had a draft among reporters a few months ago, and we had to pick who is the one lawmaker you would go to pick your bill up and get it to the finish line. And after 15 years here in the Capitol, it was a no-brainer for me. I said Amy Paulin, and that's because I've watched you run around this building. You've got like a notepad or clipboard with you. You've got very detailed plans, clearly. You have an idea of how you're getting bills through. So given that backdrop, how did this bill and getting it through the Assembly compare to any of the other challenging bills you've gotten through the Assembly?
Every bill is different, and I think that's the first step in understanding what the path might be for a bill. They all have like a fundamental, you have to make sure the bill is well written.
Mm-hmm. That isn't necessarily a problem for all of the bills, though.
Well,
we've seen some bad bills pass through this chamber, but maybe with the more controversial ones, they have to be well written. And
I'm just saying what I do.
Gotcha.
Okay, and well written doesn't mean that it's the perfect bill. Well written is a bill that will be perceived as well written. So, for this bill, every single sentence was decided by negotiating among a few people, Dick Gottfried, Dave Levin, and Corinne Carey. Most times I wasn't even part of it. I knew that they would make the right decision. So I needed to know from them why and what, and of course weighed in when I thought it was important to do so, but relied on them a great deal to have the well-written, perfect bill. So that was the first thing, but that was in 2015. So we're talking a long time ago and then as each of those other states, because in the early stages of doing this, there were, I think, 2 or 3 states that had already done it, maybe 3. There was an onslaught after, because now there's 10.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at each of the provisions that they added or deleted and why, and then we made a conscious decision about our bill. So that was throughout the process. So the bill was always forming. Just to get through that piece of it, we conferenced the bill 2 years ago, maybe, and there were things that came up that members wanted. And I wouldn't say those were the, like as you were saying, the bad elements of the bill. But we thought they were clear in the bill, and members thought they weren't. So we added language to support the members who believed that we needed to add language to make things clear. So that had some of the insurance aspects and liability aspects. And regardless of whether I knew the member was going to end up voting for it or not, I wanted to address those concerns. So that was like how we wrote the bill. And I would say every bill, there's a path to why or how you write a bill. And then the first thing I tried to do was, obviously tell the speaker how important the bill was to me, and which I did.
Yeah. Did you identify this as like a top priority for you?
Yes. although I have a lot of priorities, a lot of top priorities. And
First among equals, maybe?
Yes, first among equals.
Okay.
Yeah. So that part of it started just a couple of years ago when I thought I might have the votes. I didn't know to individually count them yet. That came later. But I knew to get sponsors on the bill. So there was a large effort that we all played in, maybe not me personally yet. That came later as well. But the advocates spent a lot of time trying to get people on the bill. By the end, we had 67 sponsors. Some of whom came on even this year separately, or came on in addition to the ones we had for a long time. And then, of course, over time, you change. Every 2 years, we have a new election. New members come, members who were supportive left.
Yeah. Can I ask you about that?
Yeah.
When you would hear a member is leaving, would you say, hey, is your successor going to be on this bill? Any sense of how so-and-so might go on this?
I did do that last year.
Okay.
If I was losing a member who was on the bill,
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was close to passing the bill. At the end of last session, I think I had the votes as well. You don't know until it's on the floor, but
Right.
I was really close, same numbers as I came out with this year. And so knowing so many members were retiring, I was in a state of panic. So yes, I asked them. And in some cases, I already knew when they got here that they would be fine because the member before had asked them and remembered they were asked and said, yeah, I'm on it. And so I got a lot of sponsors right away from those members, yes.
Were there any members who left last year who might have been opposed or maybe were still on the fence and thus you had some obstacles removed?
Yes. And the opposite, too. Because we lost some Democrats that, like Monica Wallace, who was supportive of the bill, who...
Right, lost to a Republican as opposed to a Democrat having a Democratic successor.
Right. So on balance, we had one extra Democrat, but I had the same number of votes at the end, with those new members as I had with the prior.
So Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie was asked about why this came to the floor, and he's talked about how he had been personally supportive but wanted to wait until you could demonstrate that you had sufficient votes for passage, and ultimately you had 81 votes, 5 votes to spare. I mean, practically a landslide. What was that presentation to the Speaker like? Do you have to walk through, here are all the people? Do you say, just trust me, I've got it? What's that like?
What was the process? So, firstly, I asked Carl what that magic number was, and he had said he thought 80 because we needed some room on the floor just in case someone changes their mind, someone is sick that day, whatever. So we had come up with the number 80, and then the question is, do you assume or not assume that the sponsors on the bill are guaranteed votes? I thought yes, because of the nature of the bill. I think that the experience that we all have is that people go on a bill and they don't necessarily love the bill. They go on for lots of reasons. And
political pressure from unions, political pressure from whatever. Yeah.
Constituents, they like me as a member, they don't like me, and whatever, so they go on for lots of reasons. And so first was guaranteeing those. So I guaranteed them lots of different ways. First, we had all the advocates call them. That wasn't quite as close as the Speaker's office was hoping that I would get. So then I guaranteed them. I had each of them text Carl and or Jen Best to say I'm really supportive. So there was a lot of texting, but more than once. Oh, then we conferenced the bill. And the reason I think there was a need to be sure is there was someone who was on the bill who was an outspoken opponent. So that was a problem. I think it shook me up as well, because then you start worrying that other people are on for other reasons. We're not sure why. Falsely on it, by mistake on it, whatever. So there was a concerted effort on my part to be sure that I knew and had a conversation with every single person that was a sponsor. And then, because I didn't have enough votes, it wasn't 80, then I had to go around and look, okay, who else would vote for this bill, right? Who isn't on the bill? They'll start asking everybody. And did get to my 80 at the end of, not this session, last session. But I didn't get there until the very end of the session. And went to the speaker. I have my 80, but it was already last week. It didn't make sense to force a one-house bill, which would have been at that point. We wouldn't have had enough time to work out the Senate. And it would have been a 5-hour debate in a week that everybody wants their bills. And I get a lot of bills.
Yes, you do.
So it wouldn't have been fair to the members. So I agreed, with the speaker that we would wait till this year. And then, again, the challenge of replacing those who I lost, which is why, I did call all those or ask my friends, current members last year, to call their incoming people and say, are you okay? And in some cases, I picked up a stronger supporter, and in some cases, I picked up a weaker one. But on balance, as I said, we got to the number of votes. And then, of course, some of the votes that I thought I had, I didn't have. Those weren't the members that were on the bill. Everybody who was on the bill voted for the bill. It was just those extras who, just started having reservations. So we had to replace people. The speaker himself admitted that he was for the bill. He doesn't usually do that. It's not, he doesn't go around saying, I'm for this.
He doesn't want to put his finger on the scale, so to speak.
And, but he did that last year at the, when we came to him with those votes. I also had something that I've never had with another bill, maybe one or two other bills, but not a usual thing, which is I had a lot of enthusiasm among the members. They wanted this bill. A lot of people wanted this bill and offered help, and I took it. Go convince this one. Go convince that one. Go find out what this one thinks. You're friendlier than I am. And some people really helped me a lot, and they deserve as much credit as I do in getting that bill to the floor.
Well, I want to talk about the timing of this vote because, again, this was not the start of the session. This was not the end of the session. This is in the middle of sort of the budget negotiation. And I want to play a clip of an interview we did last week with somebody you might remember, Chantel Smith.
Mm-hmm. Hate her or love her, she will run you down ragged to get you to pass her legislation. Mm-hmm. So maybe he made a promise to her that he would do it post-budget, but because the budget is late, she's like, okay,
I'm here to collect.
Time to pay the piper.
Is that kind of what happened? How did the timing of this vote come to pass?
I think that I suggested the timing based on my experience here, which is that during budget, people are sitting around and they often look for debates. I often debate bills during the budget season because you're waiting for things to happen and you don't want to sit around idle. So, I always would go and say, oh, can I debate this bill or that bill? And often I would get a debate during this time. So I knew this was not a bad time. It was a good time, perfect time to debate a long bill because nobody would mind the length of the debate. In fact, it would be more interesting than sitting around.
No, it's completely obvious when you say it like that. But as just an outside observer, we don't think about it. We're so used to the start of session push or the end of session. So, it clearly speaks to...
You have to be wanting to push all the time.
But it speaks to your success here in the chamber, I think, that you saw that opportunity, though, because not everybody else here is pushing their bills at this right time, I don't think.
You have to push the right bill at the right time. Not, there's bills that are appropriate to push at the last minute or in the beginning. But any bill that you want to debate, you want to push early because I'm going to have a lot of bills on the floor at the end of session that are going to get laid aside.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not going to get all those debates. So I'm not going to get all those two House bills. They're going to pass the Senate easily, and then I'm going to be stuck. So then I'm going to advocate in the beginning of next year to be able, because they return back to the floor, for me to be able to debate them early, so that I get them as two House bills. So there's maybe not a lot, but there's several members that get lots of bills, and I would say that's probably the strategy that we would all use.
So in terms of the actual vote, it was very noticeable who some of the Democrats were that broke ranks on this. And I shouldn't say broke ranks. We have opposition for whatever reason, but Assembly Majority Leader People Stokes, Latrice Walker, Mikhail Szilagyi, Rod Neese, and these are powerful players in the caucus, which is a powerful entity within the Democratic majority. How concerned were you about their opposition heading into this and its ability to potentially undermine your effort, even if you had 80 votes, just because they have maybe the speakers there?
Always a concern. But we had an equal number of powerful women Democrats in the caucus that were on our side, who were lobbying with me to the speaker, and Amanda, Septimo, and Carinas Reyes. So we had also Catalina Cruz. There were powerful women who also believed. So it was just divided, and I knew I was good when the majority leader came, and I knew she was, for personal reasons, hesitating on her own vote, came to me and congratulated me for working so hard and was happy that I got the bill to the floor, despite her own reservations about the bill. I knew it was over. I knew we were going to get it.
Obviously, you play a large role in this. The advocates play a large role in this. There are lobbyists working on this as well. I believe Brown and Weinrib was doing this work. Maybe you had other people working on it. What is the role that these firms play in helping you get the votes, I guess?
So we had two lobbyists that we worked with closely,
Okay.
Amanda Kavanaugh and
Malkin and Ross, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and Luann Saccone,
Who has some experience in the assembly.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
And they played very important roles. People say, ooh, bad lobbyists, right? But the lobbyists here were instrumental in helping us. Amanda was here from the beginning. Luann just got ability to lobby us. And Amanda would help with those conversations. She had her own personal experience. She did it out of love and emotion herself. And that was clear. And has been around for a long time. So she was very important throughout the process in getting us sponsors, for example, and through strategy. Very important. Luann came in later and understanding how things work, maybe better than I do, and certainly better than anyone else on the team at that point, was able to have a huge role in giving us advice and helping us to the finish line.
So what happens now for you? The ball's in the Senate's court, so to speak. No guarantee of a vote. Do you say, Senator Hoylman-Siegel, I'll let you take care of your House? Or, like I mentioned at the top, I used to see you in the Senate chamber all the time. Now I don't spend as much time there, so I don't know, but I'm assuming you're still over there a little bit. Are you going to be talking to people, doing the same sort of vote tallying and cajoling?
So now we have cell phones, which allow us to text. You don't really have to walk
To be fair, you had cell phones in 2011 when I watched you pestering like Andrew Lanza when they had the majority. But
yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Brad and I have done many bills together and many hard bills together.
He's got a lot of bills under his belt.
He does. So I have confidence in him as a sponsor, and I have confidence in if anybody can bring it over the top in the Senate, he will. And if he needs me, he will ask me. I have confidence in that as well. Have I also talked to some of the other senators who are friends of mine, maybe have come from the Assembly, who might be hesitating? I have and will. But I don't want to interfere unless interference is what he needs.
And do you feel like they are on a trajectory to pass this bill, or are you concerned about its future right now?
I am unsure, but I know that there are signs that they are moving in that direction of passing it.
And are you surprised how the governor has basically abstained from weighing in on this at all?
I would love for her to be more public about her support. If she's feeling that now, it would be a great time to say it. And maybe she will after the budget, because it is something that it is personal, and I just would be so upset if this ended in a veto.
Yeah, do you have any sense of what her personal opinion about this is? Because like we've talked about, this is very personal in nature, and despite, I don't know if any Republicans actually jumped ship on this one. I don't think they did in the Assembly.
No, the rumors are that there were going to be some votes, and that that the Conservative Party wrote very scathing, I don't know if you saw it, but a scathing communication at the end, and I think it spoke them.
So there clearly is a partisan divide. Do you have any indication about how she personally feels about this?
I've heard, again through lobbyists, that she was at a gathering and she was asked the question and said she would be supportive. But, I haven't seen a public statement or anything like that.
Well, what would you like to see done if the bill makes it through the Senate to strike the right balance of pressuring the governor to sign this while not also maybe alienating her? What does that look like?
I don't know
what
I always pressure, and maybe I'm alienating at the same time. I'm not really clear what I'm doing always, but I know that I will not have to pressure. There will be pressure. Not that I won't make phone calls.
But the advocacy groups you're talking about.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And obviously this was a lot of work this year, and there's still time, about a month, for the Senate to act on this. If they don't, what does 2026 look like for this bill? Is it something where you think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that you can bring it up and pass it? Or does it have to start from beginning again, and maybe people might want to lend their support? The speaker might not want to spend time on it. What does that look like?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
It'll depend on, what happens in the Senate. Brad is running for another office. If he wins that, then there'll be a new Senate sponsor. I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that. It's hard to anticipate what you'll do next session right now.
So you're ever going to write like a book on how to pass bills or serve like an introductory class for freshmen, a little 101? Because it seems like there's a lot to unpack there for people because you are so successful.
It's interesting because every year when there are new members, every 2 years when there are new members, they do hear that I'm a successful bill passer. So I have probably in the last 2 election cycles more than any other time almost given a class individually. If a member comes, and I love talking about it, so it's not like it's a hardship.
I would too if I had your record of success.
So, but every bill is different. So I always say, bring me the example, and I can tell you how to pass that one. It's hard for me to just say it generally. I can say, go to Public Council, go to this, but it changes. It's some chairs are more engaged. Some chairs rely much more on central staff. Some chairs evolve, like me in health. In the beginning, hold my hand, please. I don't know all the, I don't know all the
ins and
initials.
Outs of
I don't know anything.
Right.
And now I'm feeling much more confident. So I'm, so it just always changing, and so I need the lesson needs to be a practical one, but I'm always happy to help members too.
Well, we've been speaking with Assembly Health Committee Chair Amy Paulin. She is a Westchester County Democrat who pushed the medical aid and dying legislation through the Assembly by a narrow margin of 81 to 67 earlier this year. Assemblymember, thank you so much for making the time. I've really enjoyed hearing about how you did this.
Thank you.
And next, we're going to check in with the Times Union's Raga Justin to talk about some of this week's most important activities. But first, I want to mention that this week's episode of Dispatches is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers. This past week was Queen's Day in Albany, which included a so-called widely attended reception in the evening at the Egg, and it was so widely attended that even I ventured out of my Capitol cave to partake in some free food and socializing with the denizens of Planet Albany. I made the trip across the plaza with Raga Justin, the Capitol reporter for the Times Union, who joins me in the studio so we can talk a little bit about our experience. So first and foremost, Raga, did you have fun at this event?
I always have fun at these events.
You have fun at like a work/social event, always.
My standards for fun are pretty low, but it was food, there was chats. You can't ask for much more.
Well, let's unpack those two things then. On the food front, one, was there enough food? And what did you think of the quality of the food? Because this is billed as a top-notch food experience given the culinary scene in Queens. So was that reflective of what made its way to the Egg in Albany?
I feel like it's going to be controversial, but I don't think it was.
No.
I don't think it was. Did you think it was?
Well, I had a mixed bag. Some of the food clearly didn't travel well or had been on a heating element for too long. But some of the pasta I had a Cajun pasta that I enjoyed. I think that was able to withstand the heat and long time being available. What I really appreciated, though, was one, how there were not a long waits, at least that I experienced, for food. So, there's probably some sort of trajectory that I have a chart of how good food needs to be based on how long I waited for it. And if it's coming out quick, then I think I have lower standards. And also, there was lots of it. So I was full after this event. Were you full after this event?
I was full after the event, but I don't know that there were enough vendors there to make it like an exciting experience. And I'm not basing this off of because I didn't go to example, to Brooklyn Night, but
neither did I.
People who I spoke with at Queens Night who had gone to both seemed to think that this one was a little less exciting than Brooklyn Night. And they were very upset about that because they were Queens people.
Interesting. Well, there are people who overlap, who have some parts of Brooklyn and Queens. So if they're listening and they went to both, please get in touch with us with your feedback. You can comment on our Twitter account at Cap Press Room, or just come visit us in our offices at the Capitol.
And drop off
we'd
snacks.
Love to hear it.
Bring snacks from your home district, please.
Yes, something that's reflective. And again, a lot of it would be helpful.
Well, I've been to the Queens Night Market, which was frequently referenced during this event, both from the people on the stage and from attendees. And I wasn't getting Queens Night Market vibes from this. I mean, there was linoleum involved, so I guess you can't always replicate a night market when you're in a conference room. What is that?
A hallway for a concert venue.
Sure, thank you. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't like super impressed. I was full. But I've had better food in Queens.
So let's talk about the interactions there.
Sure.
When you're walking around, are you proactively saying, "Hi, I know you, I'm Raga, let's chat"? Are people coming up to you? They recognize you either because you have a pre-existing relationship or because you're just a public personality, largely because of how you've taken off like a rocket ship with
That's
this
ridiculous.
podcast?
First of all, retract that, both of those statements. That's crazy. Because of this podcast, you're ascribing my, as you called it, meteoric rise to the top?
Yeah.
Because of my appearances on Dispatches?
You're like Apollo 11. You're going to the moon.
Didn't Apollo 11 crash?
No. Apollo 1 blew up, caught
What was the
on
one with
fire.
the Tom Hanks movie?
That's Apollo 13.
Oh.
And they made it to the moon. They just didn't land there.
Okay. All right.
Okay, but coming back to the question.
Circle back.
Do you proactively talk to people, or do people come up to you?
I think both. I like to schmooze.
Well, how do you choose who you're going to talk to?
Whoever's available and makes eye contact.
And that's the mistake? Once they do that and there's some sort of trace of recognition, you're like, gotcha, tractor beam.
Actually, this time I took more of a backseat approach. I stood by the trash can while I was eating because I really was there primarily for the food. I went with you. You abandoned me to talk to Jeanette Moy, the OGS commissioner. And so I stood by the trash cans and sort of did like a survey of the room. Saw a lot of people that were there that I was like, I could say hello if I, again, make eye contact, but also I don't need to. I can just stand by the trash can and wait for them to come to me. Some of them did. Some of them didn't. I did get a story idea out of one of them. I'm not going to name names, but a state assemblyman I was chatting with. So I was like working a bit.
Okay.
But mostly I feel like those events are for building up like the more kind of fun profession or the non-professional relationship that you have with some of these people, be they lawmakers, be they like staffers. You know what I mean? Like I have this rule where I feel like if it's after a certain time and if I've got like a drink in my hand, I wasn't drinking at that event, but like I had a smoothie or a glass of cider or something. Then,
alcoholic cider?
Yeah, alcoholic cider.
Okay.
But like really chill alcoholic cider. There's like hardcore alcoholic cider. This was very chill. Then I'm not trying to I don't have my notepad. I'm not trying to interview you right then and there. You know what I mean?
So
like,
you weren't going up to lawmakers who were there. I mean, I saw the Deputy Senate Leader, Mike Gianaris. You weren't like, hey, what's the status of the budget?
Exactly,
What's going on?
Exactly. No budget-related questions.
do you give people like a hard time or crack jokes related to things that are going on in state government? Is this like a looser atmosphere than when you might have a conversation in the hallway at the Capitol with someone?
Definitely looser. I feel like if it's out, there's a certain radius outside my office where I'm like, I'm going to be asking you questions related to work, like whatever the case may be. But this didn't happen. But I feel like at events like that, it'd be like, I'd like to know more about your kids or what you do, on your weekends. Like, do you go skiing or snowshoeing, or are you a beach person?
Okay, I was about to say you're sticking with winter sports there, but then at the end
winter.
You turned it around. I have a tough time, I think, moderating myself and ensuring that I am more professional at these events and not necessarily reflective of the Dave Lombardo that people know in just a personal capacity, because that guy probably needs to be tucked away for the most part and shouldn't come out in a situation where people who I then interact with professionally see. But I think there was a hybrid version of that.
There's a hybrid. I mean, there's a version of you that like only your friends and family, I feel like, should see. Friends that you have made apart from your workday life, I think. And then there's a professional version that exists for me between the hours of 9 to 5 or whenever I'm like doing my job. And then because this job sort of sometimes requires or, necessitates going to events after 5 or 6 p.m., there's the hybrid that I think you're talking about, where I'm like a little bit looser, a little bit more relaxed, but like I'm still very much aware of who I'm talking to. These are people that I see at work. They're not people that I'm trying to be friends with necessarily.
So you're not making dick jokes there?
I've never once made a dick joke in my life.
So this is billed as a widely attended event, which allows sponsors like the Queen's Chamber of Commerce, Genting, National Grid, DoorDash, Airbnb to offer up basically free food and drink to lawmakers and staff. But in reality, at least to me, it feels like a very closed-off event. Sure, no one was checking names and IDs at the door, but if someone hadn't randomly mentioned it to me earlier in the day, I wouldn't have even known it was occurring. So what do you think of this idea that this is a widely attended event?
There's riffraff that are not supposed to attend, and that's you and me.
I don't know.
And the general public.
People seemed excited to see us. I will say that people came up to both of us. And
they're politicians. That's an act.
Staffers, lobbyists.
It's a bit.
I don't know. They seem pretty genuine. There was one fellow who was excited about meeting some of the people from dispatches, talking
Very
to people.
Excited. Well, you are famous, so seeing you is like seeing a unicorn.
In what way?
Rare public appearance. You don't do autographs.
I'd pose for pictures if somebody wanted one. At a reasonable fee.
I think that this event, I just looked it up before because I was like, what is this thing actually? And it was being touted by a bunch of local like chambers of commerce as a meet and greet for vendors with the delegation, like the Queen's delegation, which I thought was really interesting. Like there wasn't much talk of like public interaction or random people coming in. I think, and this is actually really interesting, I had one interaction with a vendor who clearly clocked the people I was with who are staffers and that I was standing in line with at least, and asked them for business cards, was like, please, help me out with some funding. Like I've got issues with XYZ.
And what did they say? Really please give me another helping, please. Not right now. We can talk about this in office hours.
This vendor also gave these people an extra helping of guacamole, and
Wow.
I got no guacamole. She looked at me up and down and was like, I know that you do not work for anyone in power. So anyway, I thought that was interesting too. I mean, I wonder if it's also more of a way for some of the people who are the vendors, like the people who are in the restaurant industry in these districts, to have some FaceTime with their lawmakers in order to get maybe some help or some attention or some eyes on their restaurant or their cause, whatever that is.
So you have a very altruistic vision of what's happening here. You have a very positive idea of the relationships that are being fostered.
I don't know if it's altruistic. It actually seemed to me pretty cut and dry. Like, I bring food.
Well, I meant the organization of it is altruistic. We are here to uplift all of these vendors and give them an opportunity to connect.
Yes, it's free food. You can't. It's not too controversial, right? Like, I think it's a cool event.
Are there any other events you're looking forward to this year?
Farm night next year.
Farm night next year.
It's my favorite night of the year.
Because?
because it's farm night. It's insane. Have you been to farm night?
I have, but not in a while actually, though.
You should have gone this past year. I cleaned up so nice. I had cherry tomatoes. I got milk. I think I got eggs, which was crazy. Applesauce by the gallons. Chobani yogurt shows up, shows out every year.
Because you mentioned applesauce and eggs.
What a segue.
I am a professional. That's why people think I'm a unicorn. Because of you mentioned applesauce and eggs, Vaughn Golden from the New York Post did a little bit of an experiment this week where he made the governor's cake recipe that she touted as an egg-free alternative while also promoting the Golden family cake recipe. What did you think about the two cakes?
I thought the applesauce cake was coconut heavy in a way that took away from its overall
And you're
flavor.
speaking about the icing in particular.
Yeah, this was which I think was part of the recipe that the governor had put out there, right?
I have no idea.
She recommended
I'm practicing real journalism over here.
she recommended putting coconut in some form in it. I don't remember if it was oil or flakes, but yeah, it was coconut heavy. It was a bit crumbly.
Yes, definitely crumbly.
Yeah,
That was my
didn't
takeaway.
stick together as well as the Golden family recipe.
Yeah.
I think you said. Yeah,
I enjoyed the golden cake.
I liked both. Cake is cake. This is the thing. Cake is cake. If it's sweet and it tastes good, what's the issue?
Well, you're adding a pretty important caveat there, which is if it tastes good, because I didn't care for the coconut and it would not go back for more Kathy Hochul cake.
Are you not a coconut fan?
Not really.
Okay. Well, then that's on you. I like coconut. It was coconut heavy, and I think I agree that detracts from the overall taste of the cake, but I like coconut, so I didn't mind the taste, and it was sweet enough for me. And I didn't realize there was another cake until much later in the day, and then I tried that, and I was like, oh, this is also pretty good. But it's cake. It's cake. It was free cake. I had 2 slices of free cake. I can't complain.
It was a widely attended cake.
Which one?
Well, the joke was that there was just out there for anyone who wanted it. I was trying to bring it back to Queen's Night.
I lost it.
As it all being widely attended.
I've lost it.
Maybe that's a good sign for us to wrap things up.
I think so.
We've been speaking with Raga Justin. She is a Capitol reporter and cake aficionado for the Times Union. Raga, thank you for visiting us in the studio.
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. I don't want you to die on the air. It'll be great video, but I'd rather not have it.
So
Still got to get through the Senate.
Yeah, yeah.